Welcome to the Live Your Story podcast with guest Sarah St. John, host of Frugalpreneur podcast and author. Hi, everyone. I am Lorianne. I am that gal from Milton, Ontario, Canada, and I'm with...
I am that guy. I am Roy Miller from Dallas, Texas. Welcome to our Live Your Story podcast.
In this episode, we welcome Sarah St. John. She is the host of Frugalpreneur podcast, and she's an author. Thanks for being here.
Yep.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, Sarah, since you're an author, tell us about your books.
Sure. So I have 3 books. I call it the Preneur series. It wasn't my original plan. It just kind of happened. One's called Frugalpreneur, Authorpreneur, and Podcastpreneur. Frugalpreneur, the reason I wrote it was because I had been running an online business, I had tried several different online businesses.
We all.
Yeah, and I just learned or found so many like tools, resources, and software that people can run an online business on a budget because they were like free or really affordable. So I got the idea to write the book, kind of talking about different ways to make money online, the different online business models, what kind of software you can use to run it affordably. And it was while I was writing the book that I decided to launch the podcast, also called Frugalpreneur. And then I wrote a book called Authorpreneur, which is about self-publishing because I learned so much self-publishing in the first book. I decided to write a book on self-publishing. And then I learned so much about podcasting that I wrote a book called Podcastpreneur. So it's kind of like as I learned something pretty well, then apparently I write a book about it, but that wasn't the intention.
Yeah, but at least you're doing stuff from personal experience.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you walk the walk, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So,
Right.
going back to your online business, like I say, we've all been there, right?
Mm-hmm.
and in your journey, how many failures did you go through to finally succeed?
Oh man. Okay. So I guess I'll give a little bit kind of more background history so it kind of makes more sense. So in 2008, I had 6 different jobs that year, not at the same time, but throughout the course of the year, and realized that I really just want to work for myself. So I started a photography business, but realized that while I like taking photos of animals, landscapes, and architecture, I don't like taking photos of people, but that's where the money is. I was doing weddings and portraits.
Mm-hmm.
But the bigger issue was the expense to maintain equipment and software and all that. So that's when I decided to try different online businesses. And let's see, I tried drop shipping, affiliate marketing, blogging, print on demand, a bunch of different things. And I would say, I definitely failed more than I succeeded. I would say one of my most successful ones was an online travel agency, which shut down in 2020 because, I was actually already leaning towards shutting it down because it was around the time that I was really picking up podcasting and wanting to go all in on that. But because of COVID, like all my bookings got canceled. And the thing about a travel agency is you don't even get paid until the person's traveled. So it's like all this upfront work. And then anyway, I didn't get paid for any of those bookings. So I was like, and I wasn't sure when the travel industry would be up and going again. And I guess we still don't know totally when it's going to be back to normal. So I closed that down. But but it was the most successful online business I had prior to what I'm doing now. But yeah, everything else failed pretty much. Everything else I tried. And I think in part that's probably because I was doing it just to try it because I heard about it, but it wasn't like a passion. So it just, failed.
Well, I think we've all been, because you talked about affiliate marketing, just as an example. Oh yeah, you just do this and these people come, and you're out there killing yourself and you don't make any sales, and you get frustrated. And I don't know, like for me, you spend all this time learning about something oh, you gotta learn WordPress, you gotta do this, you gotta do this, and then you spend all that time, and you then by the time you got it mastered, oh, you need to get this. This is a new thing, and it's just a continuing buy this, buy this, buy this, buy this, and or for me it was anyway. And
Constant upgrades like Microsoft. Yeah.
yeah, it was
to pay for
frustrating. Yeah, it was, because no matter what you did, there was always something new and better that you should be doing.
Yeah,
Did you find that?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely, as far as different things within whatever niche it was, but then like, starting all over with a whole different thing. I guess kind of like the whole shiny object syndrome, just
Exactly.
getting distracted by sorry, I don't know what's wrong with my voice today. But yeah, and I would say so shiny object syndrome, and then spending so much time learning stuff but not actually even implementing it, or maybe by the time you're ready to implement it, like you said, there's some other things. So
It's funny. I started in 2007. I owned my own auto repair shop, but I also knew that the 2007 kind of wasn't starting to look too good. And yeah, my voice, by the way, I can admit to the fact I'm losing it, but yeah, so then I went in and, there was, for $1,000, you just put up a back office and you'll get paid. You try that out for, a month and nothing's coming in and you're kidding me. And it was just a scam. Like there were so many of these online businesses that were scams, and people wanting to work from home would believe in it and go for it and invest that money, just to find out that there was, the scam, really. So I know it's more regulated now and more open if there's something bad, because it's all over Google anyway. So you can always check to find out. But that's, I think, something that really turned a lot of people away from online businesses, particularly affiliate. They gave it a bad name.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that before. I never did any of those things where it was like, pay however much up front and then, but I remember seeing stuff like that. And you know what? I haven't lately in the past couple of years. So I guess they really did crack down on that. Yeah, I mean, the things that I did, it was basically little to no investment. Like maybe I would just need to throw up a website or something, but it wasn't there wasn't like costs associated with getting started or whatever. So
That's smart.
Yeah. Now, you're a podcaster. Now, people think podcasting is easy. How easy was it for you?
So the interesting thing is I never planned on having a podcast. I only launched it because I thought it would be a good extra marketing platform when I was doing the book, and it was only going to be 10 episodes. I was interviewing the CEOs or people within the businesses of some of the software programs that I recommended in my book. But I was getting more traction and leverage with the podcast and love the connections and networking I was doing on there. And so I kept it up. I'm now almost 100 episodes and a couple years in. But I guess I never really thought before I got started about whether it was going to be easy or not. I mean, the recording in and of itself, I don't think is difficult. It's more the post-production, like the editing and the, all the social media stuff. And I think that's why so many people pod fade, or that's the phrase that they use when they start a podcast, but then they don't realize all the stuff that goes into it on the back end, especially, and they just stop, making podcast episodes. Or maybe they'll make several, but they won't actually release them. But so now what I'm doing, actually, aside from the podcast, is I just launched a podcast production agency where, someone can record their podcast and then send me the file, and I do all the back end stuff, the production, removing filler words and loud noises and all that stuff, but then also creating graphics for social media, audiograms, all of that stuff. So, because I've just found that I think that's the part where people get hung up is all the back end stuff after the recording.
I was really surprised at the percentage. They said up to 80% stop after 3 months. And I thought, oh my goodness. So they said there might be 2 million podcasts out there, but there's really actually only 300 or 400,000 because they're still up there, right, in the podcast world. So the numbers are not exactly reflective.
Yeah, I think they say the average is like 7 to 10 episodes, and then the person pod fades. So even though there might be 2 million last I checked, but it could be more than that now, podcasts out there, like you said, the vast majority of them probably won't, last. So yeah.
You have to love it. We started off, we didn't know what the heck we were doing. It was pretty funny. And then as we went along, I just we ended up with this spreadsheet and there's all these check marks to put. And I went, oh my gosh.
Yeah. And really, I think a lot of people, you take a real, I'm going to just say Joe Rogan, because he's got a big following, just as an example, Dan Bongino, those guys have got tons of followers. They've got sponsors. Well, if you're going to go into podcasting to make money, you're going to be disappointed at first. Now, you could get there, but it's a lot of work to get there.
Yeah. If you have tens of thousands of downloads, which is really rare, then yeah, you can make a living just off your podcasts by sponsorships and things like that. But for most people, they use podcasting more for networking and, spreading their message and getting leads and clients that way. Like they usually have some kind of product or service. So they're maybe not making money directly from the podcast, though you can make little amounts here or there from, you could use affiliate marketing with podcasting and some other different little things. But for the most part, people are making money from, maybe they have a product or service and then people are finding out about that or realize they need help with something. And so yeah, because they get to know, like, and trust you after a while and are more likely to maybe hire you than some random person they've never heard of. So I think that's where the monetization aspect comes in.
Credibility.
Yeah. And we evolved. I'll just say that we have evolved to get to where we are right now. We're way different than when we first started. So, we did recognize that, well, maybe we ought to do this instead of this. And so we've where we are now, I think we're going to stay. Don't you, Lorianne?
Yeah. We do this for us. There's no attached product or anything. We just do it because we love doing it. Like we said, we like to edify our guests. So I do have another podcast that's a little bit different and it does sort of connect with what I do in life. But this one's where we started, and we really enjoy meeting everybody that's out there.
Met some really interesting people. That we would have never ever met otherwise.
Yeah, so you don't even have to monetize it. Just if it's something you enjoy doing, or more of a hobby or something. People spend money to go golf, for example. I don't know. And they're not going to make any money off of that. And so, you can view it as a hobby, like, getting to meet people and network and all of that. And you never know what can come of that. So.
Absolutely.
So can you tell us a little bit about your book on self-publishing?
So that book, Authorpreneur, is about self-publishing and particularly through Amazon, because that's what I used. So it's kind of coming from that angle. And it talks about, first of all, the advantages of self-publishing versus traditional, which mainly is, unless you're some well-known famous person, it's pretty difficult to get a traditional deal. But even if you do, once you're done writing it, it can take 18 months on average for it to even come out. And so for a nonfiction book in particular, things are more timely, and the thing you might be talking about might be irrelevant in a year and a half, but whereas self-publishing, it's much quicker and you're in control of every little detail. And so that's just one of many reasons. But yeah, so I talk about that, but then I also talk about like the different types of like services you can use when you're self-publishing. Like one is Reedsy, which REEDSY, which has a free formatting thing. So like when you're done writing your book, you can format it and get it in all of the, like the PDF, the Mobi, what are the other formats, and and that's free. And it has some other different free things. And so I kind of point out the different free or affordable, just like in the first book, things and resources for self-publishing. And I talk about, I guess the main two things that I would even spend any kind of money on when self-publishing is a cover. Unless you're like a graphic design person or something, I would spend, and yeah, you could create something in Canva, but I would go to even Fiverr at bare minimum to get someone to create a cover, because they can also do like the back cover too, and the spine and all of that. And then an editor I would recommend as well. The one I used, there's like 3 different types of editing. There's developmental, content, and proofreading, I think. She did all 3 for like 2 cents a word. And my books are under 10,000 words, so it was like not even $200 to get it edited. And so I don't know, I guess those are the 2 areas that I would recommend actually spending some amount of money on. But I wouldn't recommend finding an editor on Fiverr. A cover person is fine, or Upwork or whatever. But I did get an editor initially on Fiverr, and yeah, I didn't even use it. It was like, anyway. So I went with a company that's actually what they do. So
yeah. Did you write any of your books during COVID?
no, I think actually all 3 of them were published before COVID.
Now, the reason I asked, we've interviewed some people, and they say, thank God for COVID, I finally got my book finished.
Oh.
know.
What I did during COVID was I did a whole bunch of podcast interviews and had a major backlog of episodes to edit. And so that's what I guess I did during COVID.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, but we had
we did that for a little while, and then we stopped. We were 7 days a week, like 4 a day or so. It was just so ridiculous. I looked, I'm like, oh, stop.
Well, yeah, I mean, because you'd have one at 8 o'clock in the morning and one at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and then you'd have one at 9, 10, 11, 3, 5, 6. I mean, like, it was crazy. You couldn't do anything outside of podcasts,
right?
Because you had to be on call, right? So we finally narrowed it down to 2 days, and that's worked out very well for us, hasn't it?
Yeah, I'm normally once a week, but during a particular period of time, I had to start publishing every day because I had so many episodes. And I'm kind of in that same problem right now. I recently did a whole bunch of interviews, and now I have probably 40 or something.
Oh, wow.
So I'm probably gonna have to go back to several a week.
Yeah.
That's when we realized just how much podcasting time took. Somebody said, no, it is fun, and it's fun as a hobby, but not when it becomes a full-time job that you're not getting paid for.
Right.
Yeah. And I mean, and Lorianne was doing the brunt of it for a long time. And finally I got to where I could do some things to help out, but she still does a lot of,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
but
No, you've taken over some of the parts that really do help, particularly when you're doing clips, for your guests.
Oh yeah.
That could take forever. And I always laugh, and you would know this, Sarah, but where they have to be 30 seconds, but it's actually like 45. And you've got to try and trim it down.
Oh yeah.
That took me 15 minutes to do like a 30-second episode.
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh yeah. Because I found for like every hour-long episode, for example, or 45 minutes to an hour, it takes probably at least 4 or 5 hours of post-production between the editing, the like you said, the audiograms, social media, just everything. It takes so long.
I know. We learned.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any advice for aspiring podcasters?
Oh, let's see. Well, the first thing that they would need. Well, okay, that's kind of boring. I guess I won't go into the technical aspects of it. As far as advice goes, I would say stick with it, because I mean, you're not going to see, unless you're already popular and famous or have a big social media following or something like that, it's going to be a very slow, I mean, you're only going to see, downloads in the single digits for a while. And then, it takes, I've heard, about 3 years of doing a podcast consistently for you to actually see any kind of, big growth or impact or whatever that might be. So yeah, I would say just know ahead of time that it's not going to be some quick overnight thing. It's going to take dedication for months, if not years.
Well, what's interesting for us is, what was it, like March or April, Lori?
March, yeah.
I mean, we got 500 downloads in 2 days.
Oh, okay.
And then like in less than a week, we got 1,000 downloads. It was crazy, wasn't it?
And then it just dropped off. But from March, for some
Oh.
reason, the month of March, we got 4,500 downloads.
Oh, okay. And you don't know like where that came from or anything?
No, we don't know. And how we could find that secret as to why that was happening. But
Yeah.
no,
But
I mean, we're consistent, but that was a real peak that we were shocked. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we were doing them every day though then.
I mean, yeah, because if you have a episode every day, then like if you have an episode once a week and then you have a twice a week, well, then you're probably going to have almost double the downloads if it's twice a week. So then if it's 7 times a week, assuming that those people listen to all those episodes.
Yeah. But it was just crazy.
It was. We were kind of hoping it would stay that way, but
yeah,
but we don't mind. But one thing I did want to bring up too, I like the name of your podcast. I think that's important too. It was somebody that had something about baseball, and when you look it up, there's like a bazillion people with the same podcast name, so they're not going to be found. So so which yours is different. I think that's something people have to really pay attention to, is what to call your podcast.
Well, but all your stuff is in the same series. Your book, your podcast, and your company, what's the word I'm looking for? Your company, or basically your concepts, podcastpreneur, right? So you had all that same theme, which it makes it easy to follow all your stuff.
Yeah.
Your brand. That's what I'm looking for, your brand. It's easy to be your brand and follow it.
Very smart.
Yeah.
Definitely.
A lot of people don't realize that.
Yeah, that was definitely something to keep in mind if you're creating a podcast, is to have a name that stands out, or that's just descriptive. Like I do have a tagline For my podcast, it's building a business on a bootstrap budget. But even if I didn't have that, I think people would know what it's about, like frugal entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
That's a mouthful. I wouldn't want to say that 5 times really quickly. BBBB.
Yeah.
That's sweet.
Where can our listeners get your books?
So I actually give the PDF versions away for free at thesarahstjohn.com/free. That's Sarah with an H, and then St. John is STJOHN. So thesarahstjohn.com/free. And those are the PDF versions. And then if you want like a hard copy, Amazon has them. That's really the only place you can get the hard copy. But yeah.
Do you have a website they can order your book from? Or do you ship your book yourself at all?
No, it's all through Amazon, which is nice. Yeah, so if they wanted the hard copy, they would go to Amazon. I think you could just type in the name Frugalpreneur or type in my name maybe,
Mhm.
and it should pop up. And then Amazon actually prints it and ships it. So it's almost kind of like the drop shipping or print on demand model where I don't have to keep like an inventory of books.
Okay. So
It's a
in
great
order for me to get a
service.
signed copy of your book,
Oh.
I've got to buy it from Amazon. Then I've got to meet you for lunch so you can sign it. Right?
Well, I guess since you're in Dallas, that would work. Otherwise, I guess if someone wanted to do that, I guess I would have to get it. I guess I would need to have some copies then. That hasn't come up yet, but in those cases, I guess I would order them myself and then sign and send. But yeah, since you're in Dallas.
Well, and the reason I asked that is because, Lorianne and I, a lot of times, if the people have books, we'll get them and they'll sign them for us.
Okay.
Yeah,
But they hold inventory. Like Roy and I have a book, and so, but the nice thing with Amazon, you don't have to, like the first one, I had to order like 50 of them.
Oh.
Then we did them on Amazon where you can order just 5 or 10. You don't have to, there's not a specific order, and that makes that a lot easier for us. That way. So then you're not holding on to inventory that, I know our book is good, but obviously it's, it's not a #1 bestseller. So I still have 30 of them.
Oh, Well,
So,
they make good, I guess, business cards. Like if you're at a conference or something, and someone asks for your card, you could just give them your book instead.
that's a good point.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. I thank you so much for sharing your information here and the books and everything. And we will have those links in our notes for the podcast for people to be able to find them.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Awesome. I appreciate it.
Well, Sarah, I am going to reach out to you and try to meet you for lunch someday.
Yeah, that would be good. Yeah.
I'll even go to Forney.
Yeah, I rarely run into people on podcasts that live, I think maybe one time, that live in the Dallas area. For some reason, it's usually Nashville, San Diego, Denver, New York. Those seem to be like the main places people are.
I don't know. On this podcast, we've had a lot of people that live in Texas. So
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's why, Roy likes to say that. I can drive and see them.
Well, I did see someone in Colorado this summer on vacation. So.
Oh, wow. That's nice. Yeah, I feel like I've met people. I mean, the majority of the people are in those cities I mentioned that I've interviewed or vice versa, but I have talked to people kind of all over the place. And so I'm like, I could probably travel for free if I could stay with these people when I travel.
Exactly. So if you're ever in the Toronto area, let me know.
Yeah, I was several years ago, but I've only been once. So
yeah. Well, thanks a lot for being with us. Really enjoyed it. It was really a pleasure to meet you.
Well, thank you.
Absolutely.
You too.
Okay, take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Be sure to visit us at lifterstory.com.